Hello everyone, welcome back to the Moral History series of World War I. In the previous issue, we talked about how the United States officially joined the war in 1917, completely reversing the balance of power in World War I. For the Anglo-French Allied powers, this was a lifeline in dire straits. But for Germany, this is a crisis with a countdown to the verdict. The Germans are very clear in their hearts that the full landing of the US military is only a matter of time. Once hundreds of thousands, or even millions of well-equipped and physically strong American soldiers arrive on the western front of Europe, Germany will no longer have any chance of winning. There are only a few months left for Germany to turn the tide. They must completely defeat the Anglo-French coalition and forcefully win the Western Front before the main force of the United States lands. For this reason, Germany risked its national fortune, gathered all its resources and launched the final and craziest large-scale decisive battle on the Western Front of World War I, the Spring Offensive of 1918. For this last-ditch battle, Germany exhausted all its forces on the Western Front, assembled 192 divisions and a total of 3.5 million troops, and suppressed all its reserve ammunition and elite troops, leaving no way out. More importantly, the German army no longer adhered to the old trench tactics and came up with a new set of tactics that overturned the tactics of World War I, the stormtrooper tactics pioneered by the German general Kiel. Think, this tactic completely broke the operational logic of the time, no longer conducting brainless full-line assaults, but selecting the most elite and skilled veterans to form assault teams, quickly infiltrating with light equipment, bypassing the enemy's front lines, and accurately attacking the command centre, artillery positions and supply lines in the rear. First, paralyze the enemy's command and firepower, turning the frontline defenders into headless flies. Then, the main force of the German army followed suit and broke through the entire defence line in one fell swoop. At that time, this was an advanced tactic of dimensionality reduction and striking. On March 21, 1918, the Spring Offensive that would determine Germany's fate officially began. At the beginning of the war, the German army's new tactics exploded, catching the British and French coalition off guard. The strong defence line that Britain and France had defended for many years was completely torn apart in just a few days. And the German army advanced 60 kilometres in one breath. This is the largest advance by the German army in 4 years since the Battle of Marne in 1914, when the Western Front fell into a trench stalemate and the entire situation on the Western Front was shaken in an instant. The German army pursued after their victory, their attacks escalating one wave after another. In April, we launched a strong attack on Ypres and won again. In May, it swept through the Aisne River theatre of war with its troops heading straight into the French hinterland and advancing all the way to a position only 70 kilometres away from Paris. The entire city of Paris was plunged into extreme panic, with people on the streets feeling anxious. The French government even urgently prepared to relocate the capital, and the entire Allied camp was on the brink of collapse. But everyone knows that this crazy victory is a reflection of Germany's overdrawn national fortune. In less than 3 months of fierce attack, the German army paid a painful price, with casualties exceeding 700,000. A large number of elite storm assault team veterans have been killed in action, and the initial tactical advantage can no longer be replicated. The prolonged high-speed advance caused the German supply lines to be extremely long, resulting in a severe shortage of supplies and ammunition. The frontline soldiers were exhausted and hungry, and the continuous high-intensity battles caused the entire force to plummet, completely overdrawn the momentum of the attack. On the other hand, the true ultimate kill has arrived. A continuous stream of American troops crossed the Atlantic and landed on the French battlefield. As of July 1918, over 1 million American soldiers had arrived in Europe. These young, physically fit, well-equipped and highly motivated new forces have completely filled the gap in the Allied forces' combat power, injecting new vitality into the exhausted Anglo-French coalition and completely reversing the balance of the war. On July 15, 1918, the desperate German army launched their final desperate attack, the Second Battle of the Marne River. But this time, the Anglo-French coalition had already figured out the German tactics and was fully prepared. They relied on a mature defense system in depth, blocking and consuming German forces layer by layer, completely dragging down the final offensive edge of the German army. The German army's fierce attack could no longer make breakthrough progress. Just 3 days later, on July 18th, the Allied powers officially launched a full-scale counterattack, relying on the three-dimensional firepower support of tanks and fighter jets. The British, French and American coalition forces launched a fierce counterattack against the exhausted German army. The German army, which had lost its elite and low morale, was retreating one after another. The defense line was completely loosened, and the number of casualties surged sharply. The date that truly sentenced the German army to death was August 8th, permanently known as the Black Day of the German army in history. In the Battle of Amiens, the Allied powers assembled over 400 tanks and launched a large-scale assault. The steel torrent crushed the German positions, and the German defense line collapsed instantly. In just one day, the German army suffered 28,000 casualties, of which 16,000 were directly captured, and a large number of troops disintegrated in formation. The corps commander of the German army, Ludendorff, wrote a despairing passage in his memoirs. August 8th was the darkest day for the German army in this war. To the moment, I fully understand that all our fighting power and all our hopes have been completely exhausted. After the Battle of Amiens, the German army completely lost its ability to counterattack, and the Allied forces' full-scale counterattack was unstoppable, forcing the German army to retreat in disarray. In September 1918, the Allied forces forcefully broke through the last barrier of the German army, the Hindenburg Line. This is the ultimate defense line that the German army has spent years building and claims to be unbreakable. And it is also the last trump card of the German Western Front. The fall of this defensive line means that Germany no longer has any defense system to rely on, and defeat is a foregone conclusion. At the same time as the collapse of the front line, Germany's Allied camps also began to collectively collapse, with trees falling and monkeys dispersing. On September 29th, Bulgaria surrendered first. On October 30th, the Ottoman Empire withdrew from the war. On November 3rd, the Austro-Hungarian Empire completely disintegrated and surrendered. The once powerful Allied forces were left with only Germany fighting alone, completely trapped in a desperate situation of isolation and helplessness. There was a large army pressing on the border outside, and a national collapse inside. Years of war have led to the complete bankruptcy of Germany's domestic economy. Extreme food shortages, soaring prices, and ordinary people struggling with hunger and suffering. Anti-war sentiment has swept across the country. On November 9th, a large-scale revolution broke out in Berlin, causing the complete collapse of the German Empire. Emperor Wilhelm II was forced to abdicate and hastily fled to the Netherlands, officially establishing a republican government in Germany. The newly formed German government was well aware of its inability to fight again and immediately proposed a ceasefire and peace to the Allied powers. At 5 o'clock AM, on November 11, 1918, in a train carriage in the Compiègne in France, German representatives officially signed the ceasefire agreement. The terms of the agreement are extremely strict. Germany must withdraw from all occupied territories within 15 days, surrender all heavy weapons and naval warships, release all prisoners of war, and completely disarm. The November 11, 1918, at 11 AM, the ceasefire agreement officially came into effect. The sound of gunfire that lasted for 4 years and 3 months completely fell silent at this moment. In the trenches on the Western Front, the silence was completely shattered by cheers. Countless surviving soldiers climbed out of muddy trenches, laid down their weapons, embraced each other, and cheered for the hard-won peace. After enduring endless bloodshed, fear and torment, they finally survived. The First World War, the 20th century human catastrophe that destroyed the four major empires and claimed millions of lives, has finally come to an end. But we must understand that the end of this war did not bring true peace. The change at Versailles, which followed closely behind, appeared to be the establishment of post-war order, but in reality it sowed the seeds of hatred. The harsh sanctions, unfair terms, and extreme suppression of Germany completely ignited the revenge sentiment of the German people, laying the most fatal foreshadowing for the outbreak of World War II. Has World War I really ended? In fact, it has just changed its way and continues to influence the world. In the next issue, we will deeply review the final chapter of World War I, the truth behind the Treaty of Versailles, as well as the profound impact that this catastrophe left on the entire world and lasted for 100 years. Like and subscribe to unlock the complete ending of World War I. See you in the next issue.